Shame-free wellness is for you if you were taught that loving yourself was vain and selfish. You were taught to conform to others' expectations until you lost sight of yourself. You were taught to express yourself in ways that were socially acceptable rather than healthy. You were taught to silence your intuition. You were taught to chase external validation. You were taught to value your body's appearance more than you were taught to meet its needs. You were taught to pursue status driven connections instead of genuine acceptance and love. You were taught to abandon your soul's calling if it wasn't profitable. You were taught to shrink yourself. You were taught to avoid failure, even at the cost of your dreams. You were taught to pursue perfection. You were taught not to ask for help. It's time to unlearn all of that. This journey is for you if you sense something deeper within, if you're ready to take aligned, intentional action without hesitation, if you're prepared to push past doubt, naysayers, and overwhelm to live a fulfilling life.
ADHD Rewired, episode 556. Since 2014, this has been the podcast for ADHD adults who have really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I'm ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. You can learn about our coaching and accountability groups, our virtual co-working community, and more. All at ADHDrewired.com. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Learn more about our offerings, including our quarterly live Q&As. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter, and more. All at ADHDrewired.com. And if this is your first time listening, welcome. Don't forget to hit subscribe or follow on your podcast app so you never miss an episode. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to share something personal. My dad recently passed away. It's been a really hard few weeks, and then, as you might be able to hear in my voice right now, on top of that, I got sick last week. 30 years ago, when I was just 14, my dad had a brain aneurysm in his brainstem, which left him with many impairing disabilities. And maybe this is the result of him being a lifelong diehard Cubs fan, but my dad never gave up hope. After 30 years of fighting all kinds of life challenges, his body was finally done fighting. My dad taught me so much about resilience, as well as the importance of learning how to adapt to curveballs, life as a way of throwing at us. Now, it's been a lot to carry. And if you've listened to recent episodes, I also shared that 4 months prior, my grandmother passed away. And I wanted to share this with you here because this show has always been about being real, not just about ADHD, but about life too. And speaking of life, I also want to thank everyone who filled out the survey I mentioned on the last episode about we were trying to get a evening fall group going a couple weeks that Kristen Martz would be running. And I really do appreciate those of you who took the time to respond to that. With everything that's happened with losing my dad, with then getting sick last week, I decided that I need to put that idea on pause for now. And we're just going to stick with the original plan, which is that we're going to kick off our next fall coaching groups on October 23rd. So if you're thinking about joining us, if you've been thinking about joining us, September 25th at 1 p.m. Central, that's 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 Eastern. And you'll be rewarded for not waiting until the last minute with our special kickoff event discount. All right, more info at the break. And really, thank you for listening and for being a part of this community. It really, really means a lot to me right now. Thank you. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. I am very happy to welcome back to the show Dr. Portia Preston. Portia is an author, speaker, and executive coach dedicated to helping overwhelmed individuals and organizations sustain impact. Her groundbreaking book, Hustle, Flow, or Let It Go, champions an inclusive path to wellness built on transformative mindset and culture shifts that foster connection, safety, and common humanity while combating shame. Okay, so this is exciting because if you heard that previous episode, I shared that Portia and I met at the Chat conference last year,
Mhm.
and we kind of became fast friends. And I did a pre-read of the book.
Oh my goodness, you did a holistic review of the book. It was amazing.
Doing that was actually amazing to be able
Thank
to
you.
get to know you and your story and what you were putting forward in this book. I think is such an important topic,
Thank
especially
you.
I've been talking a lot on the podcast over the last year or so about the impacts of burnout. And that's been a big part of your story as well as my
Mhm.
story. And so I think this is a really, in this sort of age of attempts at hyper productivity and hustle culture, and also burnout and all of the mental health challenges that come along with that. I think this is such a timely and extremely important book.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So what was your sort of impetus for writing this book?
Well, I wanted to find my own way out. I felt stuck as someone who was always trying to either stay up to date and just do everything I could and pump and stay in the rhythm of the hustle, or I was trying to recover from it and slow down, but never really able to sustain that. And I realized that somewhere I needed to find permission to have a more sustainable rhythm that would show up at the parts of my life that no one really seemed to talk about. Like, what about when I can't stop going? I want to stop. Or what about the times where I want to do something, but I'm not motivated? And mostly because I felt a lot of shame in both my personal and professional life constantly. And so did my clients. But we needed a safe place to talk about it and how it affected every aspect of our lives.
I think I read this back in, what was it, like around the new year, I think,
It
around.
was, yes.
All
Mhm.
right. So between that time until we're recording this end of August here, how's that journey been? Because I can only imagine it's been a wild ride.
It has. I think that that was the time where I started to get a bit more confident. I had been through the really hard push of getting the first draft out, and so I would say in the 4 months after that, I did a lot of refining, and it was borderline excessive, but it was, my hyperfixation in its crowning glory, and so I would just toil with these chapters and just try to make the words sing and pop, and I was really looking for a very calm, succinct way to bring the principles together, and I think we really got there. We developed some things that you hadn't seen at the time, such as the SANE Cycle, which is in chapter 8, and it's just like this very easy four-step process that you can do to kinda catch yourself at any time. And I will tell you, I remember finishing the acknowledgments at 4 o'clock in the morning in April, actually, probably a week or 2 after you and I spoke, and I was going to a conference that day, and I thought, "Oh, I'll sleep in, and then I'll go a little later." I woke up 3 hours later. So I show up at this conference, and I'm like, "I'm so exhausted, but I'm so happy because it's finally done." And
Mm.
since then, learning a lot of the book marketing and promotion over the summer. It's not an easy journey at all. Been very busy, which is what I want it to be. I'm working with the publicist now to get the word out and also returning back to full-time being associate professor and having like 160 students. And it's a wild ride right now. Very
So
much just like,
So what I'm most curious about is, so you wrote this book, really
mhm,
about sort of like how do we get a healthier balance
right.
on productivity and our hustle but without burning out, and launching a book while you also have this other like, how are you sort of wrestling with some of this? Because I'm sure there
I
are
am
times where you're like, I am not doing what I wrote about.
Well, that's the funny thing is actually reassuring me and it's going, "You are." Because I absolutely want it to be I was calling it the soft book launch, and what I'm learning is I need a book launch that is almost a respite from my daily life. So when I do gather with people to talk about the book, those are my breathing moments. When I'm
Mm,
talking to people in community, like, that is what actually feeds me. And I haven't done a lot of the traditional, more aggressive forms of marketing because every time I try to get online to share those things, they just don't feel authentic for me.
mm.
And so the hustle's very much where I found myself. And it is hard, but it's also sacred because I'm realizing, wow, we are all in this mess together. And I want some of the aspects of my life, but not everything that comes with it. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I have moments where the to-do list is never going to end. And so I have
It
to make
never
the
does,
choice,
right?
right? Ever. So I have to make the choice. I'm going to allow myself to have some flow right now because I need me more than any of these other people do. And there's some things that I end up letting go, not even intentionally, but it's just like, you know what? I am a human being. This is a hyper predictive society. You guys have lost your minds. So there's a lot of that going on. But I think I'm actually grateful to the book launch in a way because it's forcing me to be incredibly honest
Mm.
about what is and isn't working. And so that's a humbling realization, but it honestly couldn't be better. I think the last thing that people need to hear is someone with perfect balance talking to them about how to deal with their burnout.
Do you think in some ways you wrote the book that you kind of needed for yourself?
Oh, 1000%. I'm using all of this as a vehicle to help myself. It's a long con. I was really struggling. I had gone through a
Yeah.
hard depression. I lost hope, and I needed to know what was my blueprint that was going to help me not get there again, what was going to help me crawl out if I did. So, yeah,
So I want to, maybe we could define just a couple things here. So
sure.
breaking down sort of each component of the title of your book first. So when you
Yes.
say hustle, what do you mean?
Whatever is unsustainable, whatever is having a negative impact on what you value most. So it could be practices in your life. It also could be a lack of resources, a lack of support at the societal level. Whatever's making you have to overfunction, even if you feel like you want to, if it's having a negative impact, that's the hustle.
That is such a different definition of than what I kind of thought when I think of hustle.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
Okay.
really wanted to give context to the individual who is hustling.
So you're not saying like don't sprint, don't have periods of high intensity productivity,
Mm-mm.
even if you're intentionally off balance for a period of time. So you're not saying that. It's about over
Yeah.
functioning and going beyond your capacity.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm allowing it to be both. This is not an anti-hustle book. I felt like people needed that. Something that's not going to judge them, but it's going to say, what is the impact? So if your hustle is working for you and it is working for your family and you're doing well, I am not here to change that. But I am here to help you understand what are the warning signs when the hustle starts to get unhealthy and how can we pour in flow so that it is sustainable. But
Uh,
once it becomes unsustainable, that's the unhealthy hustle.
So the next brings us to the next part. What is flow? In your definition for this book.
Right, because the traditional sense is, oh, you get lost in this activity, you're absorbed, and then you lose track of time. It's all about having this optimal level of challenge. And I think that's a beautiful definition of flow, but it always bugged me that it was so rarely there. And so what I needed was an idea of flow that would meet me exactly where I am. And for example, this morning I had a lot going on. I had fasting labs, so I wasn't even able to
Mm,
eat until 11. And I needed to kind of turn things around quickly. And I'm going through all the steps of what I think I need to do. And I sit down and my body is just like, meditate, just right here, meditate. And about 3 minutes in, I started to smile. And I'm like, wow, I forgot it was this simple.
mm.
So, my point is that you shouldn't have to leave the hustle to find flow. But ultimately, you want to have a menu, a body of practices that are relevant for you, practical, you enjoy them, and they meet you where you are and they help to replenish you.
So when you say flow, what you're saying is creating a life that is nourishing, that is sustainable,
Mhm.
that works for you.
Correct. Yeah, that's it. Mhm.
In my coaching groups, I often talk about the whole idea of joyful success, not just success, but joyful success often requires our
Yes.
willingness to bend the world to us.
Oof. Wow. That's a tall order, but it sounds really good.
Because it's like, yeah, we can be successful by bending to the world, but like
Mhm.
that's to me, that's hustle, right?
Yeah.
And then what is when you say or let it go? What do you mean
Yeah.
by that?
Well, the first thing I wanna remind people is that there's a question mark there for a reason, and it's because so hard to let go of
Or
things.
let it go?
Um Right. It's like and so there's some things that I want to acknowledge are under our control, and it's easy for us to let it go, but then on a random Tuesday, it's really, really hard. Or we don't really have control. It's more difficult or complex to get out of it. And so I want them to think first and foremost of let it go as what are the elements of the hustle that I can let go of to find more flow? And
Mm,
we can deal with some of the bigger things, but you gotta have a good foundation for that. It took me years to build up some of the healthy boundaries that I have now. And every once in a while, they get tested just to remind me, hey, you've got to make sure you reinforce this. So let it go is, I want to acknowledge how hard that is. It is definitely part of the formula, but it's not something that we can hustle through.
Mm. And then you said you added, since I saw the book, this SANE model.
Yes.
Spell that out for us.
Sure. So this is in chapter 8. It's part of creating your blueprint for how you're going to apply this to your daily life. And the S stands for slow down and reflect. So you realize that you're kind of stuck, you're overwhelmed, you're feeling triggered, and you just slow down for a moment to just kind of take stock of where you are. And then the A, acknowledge your reality. This is where I have to remind myself of what is true, what is factual, and then what are some things that perhaps my fear is layering onto this. I'm overthinking something, I'm dwelling on a worst case scenario. If I acknowledge reality, it doesn't mean that I have to love it, but at least I understand, okay, I don't need to have expectations of something that I have no control over. This is just what it is. The third step, N, is for navigate with intention. This is where you anchor in your values and what matters to you most. And I chose this because sometimes I don't know where to go and what decisions to make, but reminding myself of my core values really helps to make that clear, even if it's just identifying the first step. We're looking to have a process that is slow and small enough to help you build momentum. But if we just kind of get in there and say we have to make this outcome happen, a lot of the times we'll shut down.
Mm.
So that's the third step. And then E is for evaluate and adapt. Because everything that I come up with, because I have ADHD, I'm always going to have to pivot or edit a bit because my brain, if it's not just right, it's not going to do it. So I felt really reluctant about developing a system that even I wouldn't co sign by the time the book got published. So I had to develop a very flexible model.
Okay. I really like that a lot. Mm.
Thank you.
Mm. What was your favorite part of the book? What do you like for when you kind of sit with it now? What's that
Yeah.
part that goes, oh, I'm so glad that the way this came out?
I have a lot of those parts. The first one I can recite by heart because so many people have reflected it back to me. It says, I internalize the hustle as my method to success. So I feel safer embracing it than I do embracing rest.
Uh,
And a lot of people see that line and they just go, that is me.
I just got goosebumps from just hearing you say that. Mm.
Thank you. It's a really good one.
My brain's kind of pinballing at the moment, so I'm just watching where my thoughts are going and trying to decide which one I want to follow.
We get to take a break here.
Okay, let's do that. Let's take a quick break, and we will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from our internationally recognized award-winning intensive online coaching and accountability groups. Since 2014, over 1,200 people just like you have joined our coaching groups because they wanted more than tips and tricks. They wanted structure, skills, a community where they felt understood, and ongoing support. Our fall season kicks off with our registration event on September 25th at 1 p.m. Central. And if you're there, you can save up to $400 on enrollment. We'll also be having additional registration events on October 3rd and October 9th. But if you want that big savings, September 25th is the day to be there. Pre-registration only takes about 20 to 30 minutes, and it's the first step to joining us. So if you've been thinking about getting the support that you actually need to put your good intentions into action, don't wait. Fall sessions start October 23rd. Join our interest list today at coachingrewired.com to get access to pre-registration. That's coachingrewired.com. Before we hit record, it had been a minute since we had kind of caught up, and I think we both have had some stuff in our lives that have been kind of going on. And you were like super sweet the other day when you messaged me and you're like, we don't have to do this right now. But I really wanted to share with listeners that 2 weeks ago today, my dad passed away. And it's to say that it's been challenging would be an understatement. I mean, it's been, because in a lot of ways my dad had a brain injury 30 years ago. And in a lot of ways, I've been kind of grieving for 30 years. And because he had so many things that had happened throughout this time that honestly should have killed him, I kind of thought he would never die. He's like things that he bounced back from somehow. Like my dad has fallen out of more than one moving vehicle before. Yes.
Mhm.
So what's been interesting, anyone who's gone through any kind of grief, it kind of feels like you're moving through this thick, dense fog with these waves that come and just crash over you that you don't really know when it's going to happen. And I think part of what I've noticed about my own response to my grief now, which I think is probably significantly different if this even happened 2 or 3 years ago, is that I've been sitting with it, not judging it, not being mad about it, just like acknowledging, like, this hurts and my brain doesn't feel right. And
Mm.
like, and because I think that my sort of natural inclination would be to think my way through it, wrap it up, let's get on with life.
Mhm.
That has not served me. That's something that I've really have realized is that even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's just sucks, like
Mhm.
sometimes you gotta sit in the suck.
Yeah, and I think you have to build up enough safety to sit so that's probably something that has changed over the years, is you feel safe enough with yourself to be able to sit there without abandoning yourself.
And I think that's coming out of my own burnout. I think part of me is so highly motivated to not experience that again that I
Mhm.
feel that I think my just intuition was saying, like, sit with this. Cause if you don't, you're just
Mhm.
going to be re engaging in the hustle that got you to be to that point of burnout.
Yeah.
And I think I just made that connection.
I'm so proud of you. Thank you for that. I say that grief is love with the letters rearranged because it is a different relationship with the person. And I feel like there's parts of my heart that have forgotten to breathe. I mean, your heart doesn't breathe, but you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
like everything is just jumbled and life doesn't look the same. People don't look the same. Food doesn't taste the same. And to allow that radical a shift in your life is incredibly brave. And no one is left without marks from that. I just think that we're in a society where people don't feel safe acknowledging that, and so they tend to build some kind of thick skin over it or some coping practice, whether it's positive or negative, that will allow them to kind of numb and distract from that pain because they think it's bad
Yeah.
or inconvenient.
Well, it is inconvenient.
It
There's
is,
no
but
doubt
life
about
is
that. Holy
inconvenient.
shit.
But okay, but think about this. Grief is inconvenient to what? Because grief is the core of life. So I think life is inconvenient to grief because grief is natural. So maybe grief is a part of the universe tugging at us and bringing us back to the core of who we are. And it is saying, no, you have a connection that has been radically shifted, and it is okay for you to feel that. And I'm gonna call a timeout for you in life in whatever way I can to make sure that you allow yourself to go through that cycle.
It's interesting too. I definitely know that I have this tendency to retreat into myself when I'm dealing with heavy stuff. I'll always say, reach out, reach out, reach out. And I'm like, as for extroverts, I retreat into myself. But what's interesting is I was finding is with my own family, have some strained relationships. So the grieving process with my family was like, there's this added element of different challenges with that because of some strained relationships that I have in my family. And I found myself so wanting to be with, I don't want to say wanting to be with my family or wanting to be with the idea of family. But then I started reaching out to some friends, including some friends that I don't talk to that often. And I had at my dad's service, I had one of my childhood friends came to the service and I hadn't seen him in probably 5, 6 years at least. And I just found there was just something that was so, I was just so touched by that,
Yeah.
that, like, I've been
Mm.
feeling more of this call to connection, and it's been really helpful too because 'cause there's been dealing with some of my family members has required this sort of, like, superhuman ability to let some things go, to say it
Yeah, I think
lightly.
it's really important to stay connected to yourself for that reason. When you're having to practice patience on a high level and staying composed when it's the last thing you feel like you have the capacity to do, that's exactly when you need other people that are going to step in and let you be human
Yeah.
and let you be yourself. So I'm really proud of you. I think that you did honor to the chapter 7 of my book that talks about the importance of having a support squad and building it so that when you go through something like this, you have those connections to tap into.
Let's talk a little bit about the support squad because I think that is such an important idea, especially for neurodivergent people who you
Yeah.
don't have to explain yourself to. The group chat that we have, where we kind of forget about it for a few weeks, and then we kind of jump back in. It's like there's no
Yes.
shame there at all. It's receptive, loving, supportive.
Yeah.
Talk about that in the book.
Sure. So the support squad, is obviously just reinforcing this idea that there's a big difference between solitude and isolation. And solitude is okay, solitude is healthy, but isolation can be very harmful. And so, no matter who you are, even if you're like the introvertiest of introverts, it's the idea of building the squad that you need. So maybe it's just one or two people for you. For some people, there's layers. And so the top tier of the support squad are the people that you're really doing life with. These are your rocks, the people you know you can count on, the people that are going to help pull in perspective and help you to breathe. And I think that our friendship is a good demonstration of that because we've walked through some of the same emotional landscapes. And so we're able to speak to each other and say, when you feel this emotion, it is okay to talk about that with me. And what that does is it takes away this idea that we're somehow being a burden or that we're too busy. And there's been times where you and we've nourished our friendship, which strengthens the foundation of the support squad without even having to talk because you'll play your piano and I'll just sit there for a few minutes. And so I think the beautiful thing about the support squad is that I'm not describing a formula. It is a very one size fits all journey. And if you don't have friends like this, then maybe it's the professionals that you need to reach out to. And it acknowledges the complexity of not always having access to the resources you need. But bottom line, introverts, extroverts, we all need some measure of community because sometimes it's hard to be everything to ourselves.
I was just feeling that sort of fondness of that experience of kind of that parallel play. You're just kind of hanging out. I'm playing piano.
I get a free concert.
Talk a little bit about as obviously this is a podcast, so people may not know that you're also a Black woman. Talk about that part of writing self-help book. I know there's a
Yeah,
lot more kind of stigma around mental health type things
yeah.
in the Black community. But talk about that journey for you.
Yes, it has been very interesting. When I was first diagnosed with autism and ADHD, I had a doctor look at me and say, I know what autism looks like, and that is not it. And I thought, wow, now I have to get a new doctor. This is fun. And it wasn't that she wasn't a great doctor. I think that the way it shows up in a Black woman is very different. And I don't think the world is really prepared for that. One thing that I've come to realize is a lot of the hallmarks of autism and ADHD were conditioned out of us at an early age as a matter of survival. Historically, we have had to operate within fine lines because we're always under an eye up observation. And so all of my stems, for example, you would not know it that I'm standing underneath the table with my hands right now because I got used to at an early age unconsciously hiding my stems. So that's a good example.
Yeah.
So if someone were to ask, "Are you hand flapping?" I would, "What? What is hand flapping?" But am I doing this for people who can't see because it's a podcast? I'm like gripping both of my hands back and forth because it helps me to regulate. But I think a lot of us have not been given the time and space to even consider it for ourselves, and we get a lot of backlash. So it's been really important for me to find community with other people who are willing to imagine that an intersectional lens for neurodivergence is far more expansive and that the science has not caught up to that yet.
What do you think are some of the key differences for you from a white person with ADHD versus a black person with ADHD?
Well, some of the things that people have told me are common is playing with our hair. For some reason, a lot of Black women with ADHD, we have locks. And so we're constantly like twirling our locks or braids. In music, the echolalia shows up differently, at least for me. I couldn't think of a phrase I would sing over and over again. But if you ask me, did I know the words to almost every single song I heard growing up and I could recognize it in an instant? Absolutely. I think a lot of my stems were internal. Things like I still know a random license plate I memorized when I was 9 years old. So, yeah, I think that's a little hard of a question because it's a little bit unconscious even to me. Dr. Judith Joseph, who wrote High Functioning Depression, talks about how depression shows up very differently in a lot of Black women. And of course, this is not to stereotype all Black women, but there are a great many of deal of us that will not crawl up into a hole and stop functioning. Instead, we keep showing up for everyone because we absolutely cannot stop. But under the surface, there's like this, for me at least, I would say like this gnawing emptiness and this knowing that I was not okay. And so that might show up as irritability and people think that that you're upset with them. And it's really like, I can't cope with anything. And all I can do is do. So I think that we are frequently misunderstood. When I am trying to convey things appropriately, word choice is really big for people with autism. We want you to understand what we say. I felt for a long time that I came across as being perceived as authoritative. In the 10th grade, had a chemistry teacher write a recommendation for me, and he wrote, Portia is pushy but never rude. And my mom's like,
Mm,
how do you write that for a 10th grader to get into a science program? But it says a lot. I mean, I was really young for my school grade, so maybe I was 14. So
pushy
imagine
but
if I was
never rude.
perceived that way by a white male at 14. What
I was
would've
thinking
been
that,
like
like, if you the same thing were occurring and it was a guy, like, that
to be
would
a leader.
yeah, assertive, a leader, yeah, like, it's
Yeah. And a lot of times people don't really understand their own biases, and so they don't perceive their reactions to you, and you just end up being really in your head and constantly trying to anticipate people's reactions, and so maybe coming across as overly calm and very soothing and mild-mannered, and then it's like, "Ooh, you just take such good care of everyone." Well, yeah, that's kind of a lane that I chose, but you may
hmm.
not know that. You might just think that's your personality.
What have you been getting so far as the people who have been reading your book, giving you feedback about it? What have you been hearing?
Sure. So the first 5 pages, a lot of people end up in tears, and I don't say that to scare anybody away, but I start off the book talking about embracing my own messy desk and how it's keeping me from my process, because I wanted the reader to know early on that I'm not what I might appear to be from my degrees. I'm not this really practice poised person, even though ironically I get on stages and I look exactly that way. There's like a roaring tumbleweed rodeo going on underneath always in my head. And I wanted to make that clear. And so I think in the first couple of pages, it kind of gets to the core of what people were wishing people would say. No matter how my life looks on the outside, this is really hard. And so I had someone the other day, I had handed it to her in a Pilates studio, and she started reading it. And 3 pages in, she's like, I am crying. I said, well, that's a good sign that you're my target reader. If you're not crying by page 5, this may not be the book for you. So the letter to the reader gets a lot of people going. Yeah. I know I told you that I grabbed a copy of the book, but then my ADHD forgot.
By the way, have you tried ADHD Rewired's virtual co-working body doubling community? We offer hosted sessions with structured check-ins almost every day and a 24/7 quiet co-working Zoom room where you can often find me working. It's only $19.99 a month, or save on our annual plans for only $150 for the year. That's a 43% savings. Come co-work and body double with us. Try it risk-free at adultstudyhall.com. That's adultstudyhall.com. And we are back. Instead of reading the intro, you're going to be reading what part of it?
The Shame-Free Wellness Manifesto on page 15.
Okay.
Shame-free wellness is for you if you were taught that loving yourself was vain and selfish. You were taught to conform to others' expectations until you lost sight of yourself. You were taught to express yourself in ways that were socially acceptable rather than healthy. You were taught to silence your intuition. You were taught to chase external validation. You were taught to value your body's appearance more than you were taught to meet its needs. You were taught to pursue status driven connections instead of genuine acceptance and love. You were taught to abandon your soul's calling if it wasn't profitable. You were taught to shrink yourself. You were taught to avoid failure, even at the cost of your dreams. You were taught to pursue perfection. You were taught not to ask for help. It's time to unlearn all of that. This journey is for you if you sense something deeper within, if you're ready to take aligned, intentional action without hesitation, if you're prepared to push past doubt, naysayers, and overwhelm to live a fulfilling life.
Yeah, that resonates.
It's what I needed for me today.
Oh, there's so
May I
much there.
may I share something impromptu?
Yeah.
I just want people to know how incredibly hard this journey was for someone who now understands the cognitive processing difficulties that I have. There were so many days where I wanted to say those words and they would not come out in order. They did not sound that beautiful. And there were years of agony where I needed a lot of assistance to make the book that I have today. And I want to acknowledge that because my life is still not easy. And Eric is having a mountain of grace for me today. I feel like a hot mess. I have a lot on my plate right now. And I know that I'm coming across as none of that. So I just want my readers to know and take my mask off and say, me too, babe. Me too.
I'm with you there, like big time. What was that analogy? I think you said it was before we hit record about
Oh,
the
the
rock
pillow?
bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I just realized there's times in life where I'm gonna end up at rock bottom, so I've learned to bring a pillow, and that is having a friend and a soft place to land because sometimes we just need to rest here before we continue the climb out.
So important. It's so like, and especially with just everything that's happening in the world, I feel this like
Mhm.
call to rest. It feels urgent. It feels almost like
Yeah.
an emergency,
Yeah,
because I just
and
feel we're all just barely hanging on, if we even are hanging on.
yeah, I think barely is probably where most of us are, and I want to acknowledge that part of what I've hated about content creation is this expectation that, like, you look right into the camera, and I've been trying to do that this entire time, and I was really proud of myself, and now I'm exhausted doing it, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, you're literally on a podcast talking about autism and ADHD, and if you're not free not to make eye contact here, where are you?"
Well, it's funny when you're talking about black women will fidget with their stem with their
Yeah,
dreads,
yeah, you do
and
your
I'm sitting here twisting hair and beard the entire time. It was, a week or so ago when my sisters and I were visiting my dad. My
yeah.
sister Julie goes, "Could you even stop twisting your beard if you tried?" And I was like,
Mm-mm.
"Not for long."
Do you also roll your tongue?
Um, no, but I pushed my tongue up against the roof of my mouth.
Yeah, I count that. I
Okay.
count that. It's literally a stem.
Oh, and I also do this thing with, I don't know what to call it, where my tongue hits like a speed bump in the bottom out and just, oh man, I didn't even realize. It's funny when you have these moments. I've always done that and I never even realized
Yeah,
it.
I did that for my own pleasure. I totally wanted to surprise you with another stem you didn't know about, so sorry.
Oh man.
Yeah, but, being someone who lives their whole lives not realizing they're autistic, I know we talked about this in the last episode.
Yeah.
The realization not only that we do have these things and that we can is a long road because we feel like we're taking away from someone by allowing ourselves to be more complex. I think there's a real expectation that we fit into neat narratives. And so to say that we're messy, it's like, no, you don't get to say that because you're getting up and doing the things, and people don't know context shifting. Like, part of the reason I actually got it together today is because I had the podcast and I knew I was gonna be on camera, but I think it's important that we talk about the complexity of our struggles, um, so that other people that are really struggling don't feel like it's not valid.
Yeah. I'm actually glad that you just shared that. 'Cause when you messaged me the other day and were
Yeah,
like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Knowing that
yeah.
I'm in my grief, there was like when I was looking at my week, I think I was on Sunday, and I was like, "Okay, I'm going to be talking to Portia." And for me, that was the anchor of kind of trying to stick my brain a little bit out of the fog. And so I was
Yeah.
like, no, don't cancel this on me. You're my anchor right now.
Okay, I love that you said that. I'm so happy I could be that for you, and I think you kinda anchored my month because it was like in 2 weeks I gotta talk to Eric, but I literally need anchors constantly throughout the day because it's like, if someone isn't depending on you or expecting something of you, I've had times where I would just sit and be depressed for an entire summer, and it's because I didn't have enough to do.
Yes.
So that understimulation is a beast.
Yes, I've been there. It's so funny trying to it's like I always think about how human behavior is like a pendulum. Like when we're trying to improve things in our lives,
Yeah,
we often it's kind of like a pendulum. We'll swing far one direction and then we kind of swing
yeah,
back. And when I kind of first started doing the coaching groups and those cycles of that, I had given myself initially kind of longer breaks in between
mhm,
seasons.
yeah.
And then after a bunch of seasons where I had maybe a 5 or 6 week break in between a 10-week group, I would have at least 2 weeks where I was literally like laying on the floor of my office, like not getting anything done and not knowing what to do
Yeah.
with myself and staying super late for no particular reason. Like,
Yeah, because you can't move. You
yeah,
literally cannot move. Okay, so let's talk about places. I call it context shifting, okay?
okay.
So, I used to go to the gym and I would do the workout, and then I would sit in the car at the gym, or I'd drive home from the gym, but I couldn't get out of the gym and go into the house and shower, or I'd go into the house, but I couldn't shower. My favorite these days is just to sit at the wall and just be like, "Yeah, I know I'm supposed to do this right now, but I can't because I'm supposed to," and that triggers my oppositional defiance.
That has been one of my lifelong things. Oh my gosh. I mean, this
Uh,
last week, I was like literally out of food. I was like, all right, this is the third night in a row where I literally had toast for dinner. Like, I need actual food. So I went to Costco. I had to talk myself into every aisle I went down.
mhm,
I was just
mhm.
like, okay, I can just do one more aisle.
Yeah,
And it was just
yeah.
hard. But that context shifting wasn't even just going to the store and getting out of the house because I hadn't like left the
No,
house for several days. It was
yeah.
like literally context shifting aisle to aisle
Yeah.
was hard.
Well, I wanna shout out Dr. Raquel Martin on Instagram because she did a video. I saw it today, and it's, like, one of the best videos I've ever seen because it was talking about the difference between discipline and capacity. And I think a lot of the times we are at super low capacity, and so we try to push through by demanding of ourselves. And that's what I mean. That's that moment where I realized this is not actually our fault. We're comparing ourselves to other people that have a lot of energy, or we're comparing ourselves to earlier versions of ourselves that had a lot of energy. And I know my husband, God bless him, because he has a will to like see me well and not starving, you know? And so this has been a tough week for him because I don't seem to have those shapes. Like I started feeling sick the night of the interview and I was like, oh, this is not going to be fun because I know what that looks
Are
like
you
for
talking about
me.
the interview you did on your local Fox News channel?
Thank you for that shout out. Yes, I had my first live TV news segment and it was absolutely amazing. And yet, by the time we were having dinner that night, I was ordering hot lemon water. And that's how my husband always knows, okay, she's about to go for an energy dip. And it's also the first week of classes. So
Oh,
yesterday I had to go in and teach my students. And I'm just like, how do I help them see that they are my priority when I am barely hanging on? Right? And so somebody's like, "Well, why don't you sign your book?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." So I let them read the first chapter and I was like, "Let's talk about shame-free wellness as a foundation." So I'm
that
literally
was so
writing this week
smart.
about I know, and they're so good. I'm like, "What is shame-free wellness to you and how do you hustle, flow, and let go?" And I'm very confident that a lot of them, without even doing the reading, are developing these really boss answers. And it's so cool because I'm really at this point in my career passionate about finding the buttons that unlock my students being themselves, not the perfectionist creativity they think they have to do well in a class, but like the, "Oh my god, I can actually be me here," you know? And that seems to be happening.
I love that you did that. It actually reminds me of what I was sharing with you before we hit record about I was talking with my admin about being kind of so in my coaching groups we have coming up a session where we talk about our legacy and where we
Yeah.
really get clear about our mortality and things we want to be
Mhm.
doing so we're living a more intentional life. And I was thinking about this, I was taking a break from the Shiva, which is like the Jewish wake.
Yes. Wait. Can you explain that for a moment? Because I think it's really beautiful, and I know a lot of people won't know what that is,
The
if that's
Shiva,
okay with you. Mhm,
it's the Jewish traditional mourning period after you lose a loved one. It sometimes goes for up to a week. I think there's
mhm,
other customs, like some people would cover their mirrors for a year. What my family, we're not very religious. So it was 2 days. So I was taking a break and there was a lot of people in the house. So I was getting way overstimulated because we're in a small
mhm,
space, lots of conversations, and my brain doesn't
mhm,
filter any of it. So I can't. And so I went for a
mhm.
walk. And then I had this realization that this session was coming up. And at first I was terrified. So how am I going to show up for my members? I don't know how I'm going to do this session when this is so, I feel like I was crying every hour. Oh my God, I'm falling apart here. And then I was sharing my concern with my admin to get some ideas of how I could tweak that particular session. And I'm very much of a verbal processor. And as I was
Yeah, me too.
talking, I think the thing I actually need to do is really lean into the thing that I'm afraid of.
Yeah.
And I think by doing so is going to potentially be a profoundly powerful and meaningful, impactful
Mhm.
session for my members. Knowing that I can do that. That's something that I can do. And in a sense, it's taking something that's lost and sad and turning it into a gift and into light. That feels good.
I'm so proud of you. It was courageous of you to do that. The last thing that we wanna do is lean into what is hard, but I think you leaned into what you knew deep down inside was true, and I think there's something beautiful about the space that we're creating when we come on for these conversations. We've done some coaching offline, and I think we're getting to a point now where we're able to coach each other online in the presence of other people, and I think
Yeah.
that's really nice, but I just wanna celebrate that we're just being right now. We don't have some super huge agenda to take over the world. We're not gonna call people into a big community. There's no agenda. We're just 2 hearts showing up, trying to find our way in the world, and I think that this world needs more of that right now.
Yeah. And just, it's messy and beautiful at the same time,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
and I love what you did with your students too. I mean, I think that's, I'm regularly telling my group members, I'm like, I just want to make sure you don't think that I have all my shit together because I don't. Right? It's like there are
yeah,
like it's the stuff that we're working on. Like this is why we talk so much about resilience and
yeah,
like it's not about being consistent. I think when we're being consistent, we are in the engaging in hustle, trying to be like ultra
yeah,
consistent, right? Because
yeah,
like
it's true.
you know,
That's where a lot of the shame in my wellness comes from because it's like, "Oh, well, you haven't done this in the past 2 hours. What's wrong with you?" And it's like, "How did you get so mean? Who hurt you?"
oh
Um,
man,
it's hard, and you can know all the tools, but that doesn't mean that you're actually able to embody it in the way that works for you, because if you do, it's gonna look different from everybody else, and that has to be okay.
I think when we try to show up in our lives in ways that are performative for the sake of
Yeah.
others, all we end up doing is hurting ourselves and those around us.
You're so right. You wanna come teach my class for me? Like, you can do this.
I've kind of had a dream of being a college professor just because I
Eh,
think that's because I just think that sounds so cool.
Professor Ters. No, honestly, I can help make your dream come true. I would totally be happy to have a little segment for my students, and you can still share it with the community, but it would be really cool for them.
That would be fun.
Yay.
Mm. I think this might be a good place to wrap it up. Where could people find your book and if there's any other kind of channels or anything you want people to find yet? Go ahead.
Okay, so Hustle Flow or Let It Go, a guide to shame-free wellness that honors your reality and gives you life. It is available at all major retailers. You can also go to PortiaPreston, that's PortiaPreston.com. And on all of your socials, I will be at Dr. Portia Preston, DrPortiaPreston. Thank you.
Awesome. And I do love your Instagram stuff you've been putting out. It's super raw and I really like it.
I think I'm finally finding my swing. I think I'm finally letting myself just be. It's cool. I
Like
think behind the scenes is my thing
your
now.
your
Yeah.
videos are I'm supposed to be doing this. I can't get any of
Did
this
you
done. I love it.
did you see about the podcast today?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Yeah, I did some IG stories. How am I gonna go from fasting labs to being podcast ready in 2 hours?
Oh man. Oh, well, Portia, thank you so much. And big, big, big hugs and congratulations. And it's been a real just honor being a part of this. I got to meet you when you were sort of in the end process of your first
Yeah.
draft and getting to see it come to light. So cool. Thank you
Thank
for including
you.
me in your journey.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here, and I would love to be back soon. I'm just saying, this has been fun.
I would absolutely not mind at all you being a regular guest. That would be lovely.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And we'll catch you next time. Before we go, I just want to say thank you to Portia for showing up so real, and to you for listening while I'm carrying a lot. Grief is a way of rearranging life. If you're in it too, consider this your permission slip to rest and to ask for help. One tool from today that you can try right away is the SANE model. As a reminder, SANE stands for slow down and reflect, acknowledge your reality, navigate with intention, and evaluate and adjust. Even something as simple as pausing to acknowledge where you are and then taking the next small intentional step can shift everything. And if you know it's time for more structure and community around your ADHD journey, that's exactly why I run our coaching and accountability groups. And our next season kicks off soon. It goes from October 23rd through December 18th. And you can find all the details at coachingrewired.com. I'm so grateful that you are here. Take good care of your brain and your heart, and love each other if you can. I'll see you next time.